Welcome to another podcast. My name is Glenn Moore, and I have the pleasure of re-interviewing the lovely Donna Grant this morning at her lovely home here on the Black Isle. We have the fire going, fantastic setting and beautiful lighting, so we're very blessed. And this is a continuation of the previous interview, which hopefully many of you will have seen, but if not, there is a link to the first interview that will be posted below in the description, so please have a look at that to see a little bit more about Donna and her background and history and how we've come to be where we are today. Yep. So Donna, how are you?
I'm great. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you too. And how did you feel about the first interview? Was that something that
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. When I talk to you, Glenn, I just love it because it just flows, right? When we have these conversations, so it's just nice to share them with other people. We chat normally, so this is nice.
Exactly. Yeah, and then you had that wonderful feedback, the wisdom woman. I love that.
Yeah.
Someone said that after they watched the video, the first interview, that describing Donna as the wisdom woman.
Wow.
That's quite an accolade, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. Wow. I'm just glad my words and what I do, it connects with people really and inspires in whatever way. So
beautiful.
It's good. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what is the, what do you think is important to you from a healing perspective at this sort of stage of your career, if you like, at this stage of your process? Is there an element of self-healing as well as healing others?
Always there's an element of self-healing. I mean, for me, we spoke in the last interview about my beginning with this journey and becoming, first of all, I was the client, then I became the apprentice and the therapist, and now I'm moving into this place of teaching. And in those places when I am teaching or in sessions, I'm always learning, and I'm always presented with issues or things that I can reflect on myself. I mean, that's the beauty of it, the duality of the continuous learning for oneself. And the journey for me is always, just tuning in and getting that as a real kind of skill set of my own to be able to tap in, tune into what's going on, and do an ego check from now and again.
Always important.
Check that ego, on a daily basis.
Do you find as a healer, I mean, one thing that fascinates me is what I call the mirror principle. I notice in my own life how people mirror back to me my own sort of stuff, a technical term,
Absolutely.
Whether it's emotional or mental or what have you, or what's even going on in my sphere, if you like. Is that something you come across?
Oh yeah, frequently. Generally in my clinic space, things will come through, issues will come through in sort of waves, and then if I'm not already receiving it, then another one will come through, and then another, and it's like, oh, okay, there is something for me in this, right? So it's beautiful, it really is, to be able to work in that way and really see that within oneself. So it's a beautiful opportunity.
You mentioned in your extended biography about the element of negative beliefs, people's mindset, and how that affects their well-being. Can you tell us a little bit more on how you work with that? If people are coming to you with certain, let's say, self-esteem issues, is that a sort of thing that you encounter? And how do you fit that into the sort of, the other modalities, if you like?
Yeah, well, for me, in my work, the belief system is always where I'm heading. I'm going back there, regardless of which direction, with which modality, and which route we go there. That's where we want to go. And what I find with some other modalities is that we can kind of work on a certain level, but unless we get the root cause with the belief is what connects the threads. And when we get the belief and the initial sensory event that creates that belief, so early childhood normally, then it pulls that thread away of all the behaviors that go with it that inform the self-esteem, for example, or create the thoughts that are informing the body. So it's kind of like, starting with the issue. Okay, what is that issue? What informs it? What thoughts, beliefs are connected to that, and going back to the beginning of where it was. And then that's where you kind of see that we don't need to know the whole story, actually. It's really, getting out of the mind, bypassing the mind, and then getting right back to the belief system. And then working with that on a deep level, really.
You mentioned things from childhood.
Yeah.
Do you often encounter, for example, things related to someone's birth, or even before birth?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how is that a different process?
Yeah. So when anyone comes to see me, I will run a few questions that, sometimes it will be quite organic, but there is a process. And one of those questions will always be, how was your birth? Because it is so informative to how we, respond to the world, we act, our triggers, everything can go back to a traumatic birth. It's surprising the amount of people who don't know about their birth, right? Do you know anything about yours?
I do, actually, only because it was a very difficult birth, and my mother did tell me about it.
Yeah. So, right then, even in utero, at the point of conception, there is a belief system being formed. So this is really important to know. And very often, if I'm working with someone for a while and they feel helpless, or, you can almost see them in front of your eyes revert to that really sort of small child, who's powerless, who can't do anything, then you kind of know you're going back to birth. I did have the great opportunity to shadow a great teacher in birth matrix re-imprinting, Sharon King, and we went off to different sort of maternity centers and doula training centers and things, and that taught me a lot about the importance of that. So I was lucky enough to really experience that firsthand. So it is a big part of my work, actually, the birth.
And what about before birth? Before birth, sorry.
Yeah, well, it depends.
Freudian slip.
Yeah. It depends how open you are. Very often, especially at the moment, right? What is going on? Because people are like, oh, let's just bypass this lifetime and let's go back to many lifetimes ago, or the soul aspects of yourself. So you can go into the light matrix, you can go into the soul, thread, or back to past lives if you're open to that, and if it's important to the healing that we're trying to achieve. That's the key. So starting with what it is, and then asking, if you get out of the way and you ask, okay, show me where that began, your subconscious, your soul will speak to you if you're really listening, and then there you go.
Wow.
That's the point of interest.
Wow, I love that. Your soul will speak to you. I love it.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started, I didn't really know where we were going. I'm kind of this facilitator going, okay, where are we going? Because I'm out of the way of this. Nobody knows you better than yourself.
Yes.
But I just know through learning how to guide somebody there gently and the right, or not the right ways, but the most effective sort of ways to get you there, Yeah, and that for me really began to change the way I operate in the world.
So when you have like someone coming to you who gives you an indication that the root cause, if you like, is in a past life or in another life or in even whatever, in another dimension maybe, is that a different process, or do you use hypnotic regression or anything like that?
For me, it's become a sort of art form. Yes, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. Yes, I am a shaman. Yes, I do EFT. But when you're kind of on a journey with someone, and then you can feel into, what is going to help that person get there, right? So it's a sort of blend. and being on that path with them. And I guess intuition plays a part in that too. But yeah, so a blend is for me always better than a one sort of route, and then you adapt to the person. You know, one person might be really fragmented and really need a sort of internal landscape to ground before we can go in to do the deep work, you know. Another way would be, you know, working with allies that you have. If you're very aligned with working with spirit, why not? Let's work with, you know, let's bring in the spirit guides. If we need a safe parent that you didn't have, well, let's find that for you to help you feel safe enough to navigate that. So yeah, it's quite a creative process actually.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Sounds like it, yeah. Incredible.
Yeah.
I like the idea of being intuitive around it as well, so that there's no sort of black and white toolbox. That's what I'm getting. Is that right?
Yeah, I think for my students when they're learning, they're like, whoa, you know, there is an element of intuition. I'm a really experiential learner, so for me, you know, when I'm teaching, we got to go do the work ourselves, right? We got to just go in at the deep end and follow, and then from that we learn how to navigate and help support other people. But yeah, there is a template, let's say. There is a toolbox of like, if this happens, this is what we might do, right? So there is a template, but it's free because we're all different. And the key factor to it is getting out of the way, right? For me, getting out of the way and not trying to jump the gun to know, you know, of course you'll think, okay, this is going somewhere, but really it's their journey, their process, the client.
I know that one cap doesn't fit all, but how do you approach someone who's resistant, let's say, to going deep?
Brute force. No, I'm just kidding.
You hit them over the head.
You will do it. No,
I'm joking.
Absolutely. Someone who's resistant, we look at why they're resistant, right?
Yeah.
So you were resistant because I don't trust. We were resistant because it opens it up, you know. We need to find where the resistance was a protection mechanism that served them to a point, right? So where did you first need resistance in your life? Where did it not feel safe, you know? And then just sort of opening it up gently.
Wow.
But, you know, it's important that people feel safe enough to do that. And by showing up to do, this work, it takes courage.
Sure.
It really takes courage.
Sure. Does it depend on the individual, or do you have a sort of like a sort of Donna method for making people feel safe in those situations? It's just a conversation that you have, and then you go where your intuition takes you.
I mean, I'm always learning about this. You know, I have an idea that yes, my sort of energy feels safe. This place, you can feel it in this room, it's a safe place, right? So what is it that helps people open up? Well, I think when they feel love, you know, I think when they feel love, like there's no judgment. I'm meeting you as someone who's been on a journey and probably had some of those experiences on some level. So it's not it's a place of authenticity and love that, you know, you're held. I'm holding you. I've got you in this moment. And that helps people feel really safe. And then, of course, as I continue on my journey and learn more how to be in my divine feminine essence, then there's more to it than I can comprehend and understand, you know. So.
Wow. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. So, self-esteem issues. That's a big thing. Is it still? People are still.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, the kind of theme, I would say, there never is one, but, you know, anxiety, self-esteem, huge problems. You know, especially I see a lot of teenagers with really low self-esteem. I love working with teenagers because I just think, my God, what would it have been like in my life? Obviously, I'm grateful I'm here. All this has taken me to this point. You know, I look back on my life. But if I didn't have to go that hard route round, right, that I was at this point in my life where, you know, as a teenager, that's when I went off the rails. So I often say that when I'm sitting with, you know, young people, you know, this is a pivotal moment in choosing which path you go, and I can help and support you with that. So Self-esteem, yeah. Low self-esteem is a big issue, especially within that area. So I love getting, feedback months, years down the line that, they've turned their pain into poetry, or they're working with children in this way. And this is what the beauty is, right? When we can turn our pain into something beautiful and help others.
Fantastic. Do you notice any significant difference between working with teenagers and working with adults, or working with younger children and teenagers or adults?
Younger children are much easier than adults.
Okay, less resistant, right?
Right, not so much conditioning, right? This external conditioning. I think we touched on it last time. Like, they're natural shamans. So, like, what do you want to do? Where do we want to go? I have this issue. This anxiety, this fear. Break it down very simply, because there's not that over analytical mindset that's become more and more prevalent. And they will find out quick solutions. That is so fun and so empowering. And that's largely in the subconscious. So they start to paint and create this inner landscape. And, the word I hear most is empowering. They feel empowered by taking back control, right? Feeling where they have been disempowered or not heard or don't feel safe. And then creating that internally as a new imprint to kind of create, a new belief system, essentially.
Yeah.
Teenagers can be resistant, bit tough. You've got a choice here, but and they've got to be ready. Sometimes they're just not ready, and sometimes it's not the right time. So it has to be the right time. But I often say that when I'm working with children or teaching in a class of children, like, you know what, you're much better at this than adults. They're like, so it's like
a bit of kudos.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, wonderful. Now, you're a mother yourself, of course.
Pardon? A model?
Your mother.
Oh, a mother.
And a mortal. Well, depending on your definition, a mother, sorry.
A mother, I am a
Pronounce
mother.
that correctly. So, how do you find that with your own children? Is there a sort of healing element there ongoing?
I think yes, there is. I have 3 beautiful girls, very different ages, big gaps between my kids, I think becoming a parent, I was not ready to become a parent, so that was my biggest lesson. Okay. And I don't know if anybody really is, but my goodness, that was when I realized that there was a lot of work to do on myself. I don't think by any measure I am a perfect parent, and still learning as well and being human in that experience. But I think my kids will probably be resistant to like me coming into the school next week, because they've vocalized already and doing some meditation work and tapping work, but actually they're open to the work that I do.
So you're going to teach in the school as well?
Yeah, I'm doing a little program that's going into schools. So that's just tools to help children with their emotions, regulation, and such like. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. But I have great kids, and I'm inspired by them, and I learn a lot from them. But it's easier to work with other people's children, if I'm honest.
Less attachment, right?
And you can't be a therapist for your children. I have to be a mother for them,
Being a therapist for yourself.
Yeah. But when I get it wrong, or don't make the right choices, I can say I'm really sorry, instead of berating myself about not being the perfect mother, which I think we do. I think we live in some days I'm like, how do I do this? How do I run my own business, give all my emotions, and or look after other people's emotions and hold that space, and then show up for my children? And it's like there are days where I'm like, how do we do this? It's all learning, isn't it?
It's all learning. I'd like to go in a a couple of different directions, if I may. We touched upon this very briefly in the previous interview. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, how you relate to work in nature and the healing power of nature. I mean, you live in this beautiful area where nature is. I mean, it's stunning.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you touched upon last time this idea of, going out into nature, going into the woods and the healing element there. And I think you've done some healing work in that way.
Yeah.
Can you, I'm sure people would love to hear about
Thank
this.
you.
I know I would.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, we are nature. There is no separation. But, for my journey home, because I left home when I was 16 and didn't really appreciate where I was from, the Highlands, of Scotland. Wow. Went off and, to the bright lights of London. And then as I returned back here, it was to connect with the land. The land was the healing that I required at that time. And, that really opened up. I mean, I always had a deep connection with trees, the forests. For me, trees have saved me on many occasions where I've been sitting in the roots of trees and answers have come through this beautiful connection. So, I allow this connection to sort of open up a part of me that allows nature to speak through me, I suppose, or I can really hear the wisdom of nature, whether, what that might be for me. So that kind of connects into the shamanic threads, or what is shamanism, it really is this deep and beautiful connection with nature. I always had a fascination with nature as a child, and I look back now and, I was always pretending to be animals and having this fascination with wildlife. And, I think it's me reconnecting with that part of myself. But, as we know, nature just automatically brings us back into our parasympathetic on a scientific level. But there's so much more. It's such a deeper wisdom. So when people come and stay here, one of the things I do in my sort of more bespoke one-to-one experiences here at Aurora is we will go into the woodland, we will go into the forest, we'll listen to the, the flow of the streams or the mountains, whatever's really calling, and bring that landscape within us. So there's this kind of wisdom that comes in, but also part of the work that I do is creating that sacred landscape within us. And when we have that, we have a foundation of equilibrium, of stability to be able to deal with or, kind of come back to that balance within. So, yeah, huge part of my work. Another one of my questions. How was your birth and where is your favorite place in nature? Where do you
really?
connect?
Wow,
yeah,
that's
because
beautiful.
anytime someone is ungrounded, then that will be the doorway in, that will go there. And we can also bring fragmented child parts to this inner landscape and start to work with them there. So it's important. Yeah.
You mentioned your shamanic work. Does that include soul retrieval, and how is that an important factor in what you're doing? Important is the wrong word, I know, but is it a...
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange thing, the word shaman. I suppose,
It is, yes.
it's so broad now, and I kind of go a little bit, when we use it. It's not that I'm not, I am, and everybody that, I've taught is like, this is shamanic work you're doing, or this is this. And I'm like, I don't have a name for it. It is connection to everything. But yes, soul retrieval, I had been doing it without knowing I'd been doing it with my clients, bringing back the essence, of where that part of you had been fragmented. So yeah, it is a part. And often, if we have childhood trauma, again, there's a little bit of a pattern here. If there's a big childhood trauma and, working with some pretty nasty traumas, there will be a part of the soul that fragments. And then, we would, as a holistic, approach, want to bring that soul part back as well. So yeah, that would be part of a protocol.
Mm, mm. Energetically, do you need to go or take that person back to the place where that happened?
No, not
No?
energetically. I mean, usually, I mean, there are different ways of doing it. It can be a pure shamanic soul retrieval.
Right.
But if I've been working with someone and we've gone into a place and sexual abuse, your soul fragments, you know, any big topics of big traumas where it's like we split, we fragment, then there will be an aspect. And that's when it's sort of intuitively, yeah, there's a part that needs to come back,
Right.
okay? But not always, yeah. It's worth checking in on, you know, if you were creating a whole plan, a soul retrieval would be in there as a trauma-based therapy, yeah.
Lovely, yeah. Another topic which I wanted to raise with you,
Yeah.
love, the
Yeah.
healing power of love, and in particular, self-love.
Yes. Yeah, it's so important. It's all it is, right? Love, you know. There's so many beautiful teachers who speak of love, Rumi, you know, and we think of the divine love, the dance with that love and the love in ourselves. You know, when we think about vibrational levels of frequency, love is the highest vibration, you know, when we can come and view the world through the eyes of love. The only thing that stops us there is our traumas, our misperceptions, our belief systems, our triggers, you know, our environment. So it's all the influences that take us out of that vibration. So, you know, when we think of the ladder of consciousness, Abraham Hicks, you know, the love is at the top and then we filter down and at the bottom is fear, hatred, you know, whatever else might be in there. Then we want to, for me, this is why it's important to look at the negative when we're thinking, if I just want to be loving, I want it beautiful. Yes, please, be loving. But the moments we're not, don't ignore them. Look at them, beautiful. This is a part of me, my alchemy. I want to alchemize this part of me, this story that doesn't respond to the world through the eyes of love. And then that's, you know, that's the key to coming back to that vibration or raising that energy and moving back into the heart space. Yeah, it's a dance, you know. But yeah, what would love do is one of the most beautiful perspectives, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I remember I had a coach years ago, and she used to say to me, "What's not to love, Glenn?" That was a really big thing, you know. What's not to love?
Yeah.
So on that basis, I mean, is it advisable? Is probably the wrong word, but is it valuable for people to learn to love their trauma, their past, their whatever the issue might be, whatever the root cause might be? I mean, is that's part of it, rather than the, I don't want to go there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the not wanting to go there is the bit of the mind, isn't it? It's the ego defense mechanism. So it's to bypass that, and that's why, you know, that's the tricky point when we don't want to go there. So there are many different ways of getting out of that space, and, you know, the energy psychology would be the way I would, you know, take someone on a journey with that. But, you know, when we meet the parts of us and all aspects of us with love, then we begin to look with curiosity, not fear. We begin to look with interest. Okay, all right, I have some shame here. Okay, let me meet this shame with love and consciousness, you know, and let's start, you know, communicating with the shame. What's this shame story? And then we can kind of use that as the doorway into, okay, where does that come from? Okay, this moment in time that's informing this. Because, you know, your brain is a pattern matching organ. Whenever anything remotely similar that triggers it, we go into this deep story of shame or suffering or whatever it is. Then, you know, every trigger is a beautiful invitation to look at things with love and compassion, I think. You know, sometimes it's easier said than done, but for me, you know, if we can just pause, tune in, and think, okay, what has this come to teach me?
Yes.
Where is this going to take me to my
Beautiful.
deeper healing, really?
Beautiful. Beautiful. You're prompting me to think of my sort of podcast title, which is Understanding, Acknowledging and Embracing. So what you seem to be saying is, you know, a lot of it is about understanding what the trauma or whatever the event was, acknowledging it in a not defensive way, but in a way that's okay, that's part of me, let's say, and then embracing it in terms of, you know, allowing it to be in a place of love. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. The only thing that would get in the way of that is that belief system, because the thing is that keeps it in place. Yes, you know, if it's something that's sort of happened after the 7-year-old phase, right? That's easier to diffuse.
Right.
But if it's a core belief system that's happened in 0 to 7 years, then it becomes hardwired. So, you know, the love through repetition could diffuse that, but it's a bigger story and a bigger journey to get there. So we need to go in through the subconscious to do that. So that means we need to go into theta. We need to either bypass the analytical brain to get in, or really be in a very, very powerful loving state to diffuse it, you know. I mean, it's part of the journey, but the thing that stops us really continuing that path of moving beyond that is the belief systems, the energy that's stuck there.
How would you deal with someone who comes to you and says, I can't love myself?
Well, I would ask them, why?
Yes.
Why can't you love yourself? What is informing you that you can't love yourself,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Well, you know, when we think about the belief systems, the 2 foundation belief systems that are like the big ones are not good enough, not lovable, right? So where were you first not lovable in your life? Now, on a conscious level, you know, you're working with someone, we could have a discussion about that. We could analyze, we could talk about it till the cows come home. But unless we go into the subconscious and really deeply connect with that part of us that felt deeply unlovable, it could be anywhere. You know, it's amazing, actually, Glenn, right? You know, when you're working with someone, you asked me before, you know, can you predict, like, is someone more difficult to work with than another? You know, I can think of people who've really surprised me in a first session where you think, you know, you think you're going somewhere and this is it, you know, you never really know.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, boom, back to birth, you know, father held you in his arms for the first time and he was expecting a girl and you were a boy. Well, in that moment, you felt unlovable. Right? Now, of course, we can't really remember that, but our subconscious does. So, boom, up it comes when we're doing this work. And it's amazing where it takes you to things you would never even imagine if we were sitting here having a conversation about it. And it's like, wow, I did not know that was there. And it can be something that, you know, from an adult mind may not seem that important, but from the perspective of a child or someone that needed to be accepted and loved, then that was a huge thing, and actually, you know, a point of survival, right? I needed to be loved. I needed to be safe.
Do you think we live in a loveless society? I'm speaking generally.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I try not to think too much of that because it does overwhelm me. I think we need more community. I think, you know, community and we've moved away, we've moved into separate states and we're becoming more and more and more separate. And I think that deeply affects our state of feeling connected and loved. And that's a part of those basic human needs that we need, right? We need connection. We need love. You know, you think of that child and what you need. That's kind of what we're losing, I think.
Yeah. Can we get it back?
I mean, we're doing our bit, Glenn, aren't we?
Yeah, I hope so. Well, I hope so. We do try.
We do try.
I do try, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we are. I think people are I think the systems are breaking, you know, and everything around us is kind of crumbling, and it's that sort of point where, you know, we either go one way or another. And for me, I'm hopeful. I think it's just stripping everything back and just continuing to love. Yeah.
Mm.
Because the way that we lose, and this is, you know this, I know you know this, but it's just when, whenever there's an element of fear, I suppose we can ask ourselves, this is creating more separation. This is, the bigger picture is the fear is what is the problem. And, that's my body saying yes on all levels when it
Very
does
good,
that.
yes.
And, for me, this is why it's so important, this work. When we can come back to love, when we can come out of fear, when we don't react and come from our ego or our fearful, shadow, then we can hold whatever is going on in the world and create more connection and love, I think that's it.
How do you see the future of healing? Or what future would you like to see from your own perspective, given where you are at the moment and what you've done and where you're going? Is there a vision? Is there a something that you are working towards in some way?
Yeah, my mind goes, I'm seeing loads of things happening, but for personally, what's happening is, my purpose is to share and teach more of these tools. It feels very important and scary sometimes, like I wouldn't say I'm a natural leader. I wouldn't say, it's my sort of conscious choice, but it feels like I have to do this, and that's not coming from a negative place. It feels like that purpose, that draw, that, sharing these tools, yes, in the way that I teach them, yes, that's important because it is a loving way. And I see more of that. As I said, we're trying to get that into schools when we start to come back to these loving sort of responses to the world, then obviously other things are not going to, these systems are not going to hold anymore, So keep doing the work, keep looking into these tools that move beyond this fear state of being and existing, and this is the 360, the new paradigm of health, that we are conscious beings. We can shift and move, we can heal, our bodies are incredible. We just need to take our power back, and that for me comes down to those belief systems and really the ancestral healing that can come through that. And then we break those patterns, we don't repeat them, we elevate beyond them, and we come into a state of consciousness. And when we're in this state of consciousness, our frontal lobes are switched on, we're all communicating, we're in this wave response, we're in flow. That's it, So it's just coming back to this inner work, doing the work on yourself. And when you're doing the work and seeing you're making a difference, share it and share it and share it with more and more people. And then, that feels like it might make some impact in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious though, because I think I may have said to you before privately that I'm personally on my own sort of self-healing journey, and I've set the intention to heal myself without external facilitation, let's call it. How do you feel about that, given what you do? I mean, for me, that is potentially a natural progression in terms of our human evolution. Whether it happens or not in my or your lifetime is another matter, but it's possible. So, and I think you've said before that you're the facilitator, right? Whoever you're working with is actually healing themselves, but you're, if you like, the catalyst. Is that right? Or you're the mirror, maybe, or whatever it is. How would you describe it? And what's your take on self-healing?
Yeah, I think it's really important, self-healing. You're taking accountability and you're working on yourself. There can be some blind spots that we can't see when someone is the mirror, right? So I would work with somebody. I work with somebody because I think sometimes we can't get to the places that our ego is blocking, right? And that's my experience. When I'm teaching, I will sit in the place of the client. And the last point, intimidating as it might be for my students, is they will run a session with me and we will go into a place of wounding for me, so I'm the vulnerable client. And I think that's a beautiful process to be held in that way.
Right.
So, you know, why will we not receive support, right? So why do we need to do things on our own when community is really important on our healing journey as well? So everything is information and looking at ourselves. Why do I need support as well? So your journey might be you've had plenty of support in your life and actually this is something you need to do for yourself. My journey might be I had no support and I feel I need to be able to surrender and let someone in. So yeah, like I say.
So one cap doesn't fit all again. I mean, it's everyone's.
I think everybody's different, and I think it's interesting to work in all ways. And then you go, actually, that doesn't really work for me. I need, you know, I'd be curious. But yeah, being open to receiving support is good and important. And yeah, there are some things we can miss, I think. And I'm always learning and in supervision and, you know, receiving therapies from other people, because I think it's important for my self-care as well.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good answer. It's very interesting. Yeah, you know, no man is an island, as they say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and the community thing. You know, I certainly, you know, agree with that. That's again, hopefully, the way we're going, but we'll see. Yeah. Do you have a vision for that at all? I mean, forming your own community here. I mean, you have had in the past something similar, haven't you?
Well, I haven't had a community as such. You know, my dream, if I could visualize a dream, would be living in a community for sure. You know, you think of everything that informs your journey, and I think about myself, you know, the beautiful way that this place, this is the healing center that I live here, came into fruition. You know, it was a risk, and it came at a point where I was like, you know, what am I doing? And and the message came through to me that I needed to be here, and the land wanted me here, and to open a healing center. But it can be quite isolating as well. I'm really aware of that. So I am calling in community, and that's where I am in my journey, and it's certainly where I would like to be, you know, as I get older and think about my future. I'd like to have, you know, a community for sure. I think, you know, there's elders in the community that are, you know, a little bit far away, and I feel I really understand their story now, that their requirements. So it's made me really think deeply about the future for myself, and I think that would be something we would all benefit from, right?
Yeah, that's my sense too. Is there a message or something that you'd like to express in terms of, you know, what maybe people watching this can take away, or in terms of, you know, something to well, whatever it is, you know, however it feels for you to express it, if there is such a thing. Maybe some reassurance, some assurance, some guidance, some...
Yeah. Okay. Let me see.
I think you've got it.
I don't know.
Yeah, do take your time.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I think for me, I can only speak for myself, but, you know, what really helps me is to look at where is blocked, or where the suffering is, or I think I spoke before that I feel things quite deeply, you know, and that can be a gift and a curse at the same time, you know. It's but if we can use that as, you know, conscious beings to see, you know, what we can do to, you know, move beyond our suffering stories or limitations. So for me, I would use, you know, tapping into the meridian lines and some self-enquiry, and just dropping into that space and going, okay, show me where it is I need to work to come back to love, right? That could be a point of interest. And then to go into that feeling, that awareness, and then start to question it and start, instead of avoiding or, the being fakely positive, shall we say, to go into the truth. Okay, what is beyond that? What is underneath it? And what is it blocking? And where does that come from? Because that will be the unwitting key. And then you can start to work. So it becomes like, this dance with yourself. Like you really get to understand yourself. And then when we do, then that's all we can do, right? Work on ourselves. And be
know thyself.
And really keep coming back to this loving awareness. I mean, it's this. There's always something coming through that's of interest, and like, oh, okay, that's curious. Why is that showing up for me? This week I had a complete revelation that I haven't come across before, and that was like really beautiful, and it was time for me. It's interestingly enough about stepping into my power, about speaking and sharing, and what was blocking that. It was like a bit of a, ooh, yeah, and then this whole story unraveled from this. And I would never have known if I hadn't been really honest and looked and gone, what is that? What is blocking me? What is coming up? What is this anxiety about? Why am I a bit like, oh, I don't want to be seen in the world? And guess where it went back to?
Go on.
Birth.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, before birth, because I was a mistake. Right? I was not planned. I know. Well, somebody else's words. But that was what I took on in that moment.
Sure.
And I didn't even deserve to exist. And so when I went back there, the whole thread of the patterns of self-berating and punishing, I couldn't possibly, was all there. And I've done this work for a long time. And I've gone back beyond birth and places, but there was another thread there. And it was almost around sort of punishing myself, right? That I'm not allowed, So for me, great, another thread gone, right? Now I can sit with Glenn and have a chat and
beautiful.
Feel really okay with that, and anything that comes,
I love the question that you sort of posed, that what do asking ourselves, what is it that I need to work on, or what is it I need to be to get back to a place of love? I think that's a great question.
Yeah, because it's open. It just opens, and we can look really within, And whatever way that you find works for you. But for me, then sometimes that will take me on a shamanic journey, and sometimes that will take me back to wherever it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Donna, thank you very much for stepping into your power to speak to us today.
I'm doing it.
You've done it.
Thank you.
Extraordinary. Thank you very much.
No, you're so welcome.
So valuable and so lovely to talk to you. And thanks again for agreeing to do this. Thanks to everyone for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed it. And we'll see you on the next one. Okay, thanks again to Donna. Okay, and bye to you all. Thanks again. Bye.